Portal2Cast.
Let the games begin.
In 3, 2...
Welcome to the Monday Madness edition of the Portal2Cast, the only show dedicated to making you a better builder. In Monday Madness, we submit a challenge to the community, and the community rises to that challenge. This week's challenge was called Trajectories, in which submissions were asked to include 2 angled panels at different angles, not including 90-degree panels, in which some aspect of the angled puzzles was required to solve the puzzle. These grades were razor thin between them, so you could reorder these 3, and there was probably a 4th place and 5th place that you had in mind that could easily have made the top 3. There were many good submissions to this week's challenge, so if you didn't win, please don't take it personally unless your puzzle sucked. Our 3rd place puzzle requires gelling bridges, precise trajectories, and even once you've solved it, you'll discover you haven't solved it. Please congratulate Lemonator with Trajectory Companion. First thing you'll notice about this chamber is that it is very long. It doesn't have as much lighting as I would prefer. The light bridge. We have 2 gel dispensers and we can get right to them, but they won't do much for us yet because we still won't be able to cross the room. First things first, let's take our trusty companion cube, set her where she's supposed to be, right on a button. Red gel first in this case, and I dinged this map slightly for transparency because it's hard to see which button does what unless you watch them as soon as you hit them or memorize the fact that X is up there. We see this suspicious looking little room up to the upper right and an ant trail here to this panel here. But how do you get up there? There might be 2 ways. I think that's probably how I did it before, but when I came back and replayed this puzzle, I think the intended solution was a little bit more elegant, because I just bounced into this portal here, and you'll see I got just a little bit more height. So now we've unlocked another angled panel and it's low to the ground, but we can finally make use of this light bridge construction. Very precise jump with that blue gel there, very satisfying, even though you didn't have to do much to set it up, it just felt good to cross the room. So now we're across the room, only one major problem, we've left our companion behind, and that's not a safe place for her to be. All sorts of things could happen to her back there. You'll see that this button does a couple of things. It opens up the laser grill, but it closes the exit. A little bit confusing that that's a check mark. I actually would have reversed which one of these starts enabled so that it were a little bit clearer that the button opens the exit would activate the laser field instead. This button is set back here, and if you're in a hurry, you might miss this discolored panel here, but you can find it fairly easily. If you're not real quick with this panel, you can get stuck and have to repeat part of the puzzle. But let's quickly snag our companion cube, take her to the end over here, and have a look at this exit. Now we have a problem. The exit is closed. There's this interesting panel here with a timer on it, and the signage says dot, so let's go find dot. Dot is on this pedestal button here. If you activate this flip panel, that one flips away, and you can't have both on at the same time. So you see my orange portal vanished, and there's nowhere to portal there. So as soon as I take my cube off the button to open the exit, I can't get through the laser grill. If you haven't beaten this puzzle, I highly recommend you stop watching now, you go play it. There's a link to it in the description for this video. Tear your hair out in frustration, finally beat it, and then come back and watch. So I spent a lot of time on this, and I very much like limited puzzles that can get me to spend a lot of time. I did find the final solution a tad gimmicky. I liked it nonetheless. You remember that pedestal button all the way over there that gave us the companion cube? This flip panel here, if you portal all the way across the room and jump, you can just barely reach this button. Destroy your cube, which removes it from the button and opens the exit. Well done with a limited number of elements, obviously making use of flings, but it was the early easy puzzle plus the middle puzzle with the light bridge and this very confusing puzzle at the end, which really made me enjoy this puzzle and spend a lot of time on it despite its apparent simplicity. Our 2nd place entry requires a minor amount of execution. It involves flings. It made me very frustrated until I managed to beat it. I give you Nonlinear by Eunice Jet. My first complaint: for a puzzle this large, you should definitely light it just a little bit better. Also, you have quite a lot going on here. The only thing that rescued this chamber from being graded more severely for lack of transparency is the fact that the number of things you can mess with doesn't do very much until you solve them one by one. But it wasn't run in and turn on a million elements. It was run in and turn on like 3 or 4. It's not terrible. So we have an angled panel here. This button will remove the fizzler. The first part of this puzzle is actually pretty easy, but it can take a while to find, so it's a bit of artificial difficulty in here. And you'll notice there's another room up there, which makes me wonder, well, what the heck is that for? And you'll do things with this faith plate and try to get over there that you can't do yet. So the first part of this puzzle, other than not knowing where to go, is just climb up here, and you can see there's another button. And there's just lots to mess with early, but again, none of it's very effective until you spot what to do with it, so that's okay. The first thing we're just going to do is fling across here. This faith plate is just a return faith plate, and you'll see there's another one back there. So bonus points for anti-frustration features of not making the player have to run back and forth solving things. So of course the main reveal on this side is our button, which only gives us one thing, a cube. I don't like it when puzzles give me a button and then I get to the button and the button turns on 2 or 3 or 4 other things. All of a sudden you've upped the difficulty for no real reason right away. Give me 2 or 3 linear things, and if you have that many items in your puzzle, my guess it's probably a little too complex for my taste in the first place. One thing, that faith plate actually made me think it might be involved for a fling, but if you experiment with it a little bit, you'll see, and this is why he put the target against the wall. I actually would have preferred the target be against the wall, not even over a portal area. That would make it even clearer that the faith plate is not for a fling. So we have our cube and we can do one of 2 things with it. We can turn off our fizzler, or we can angle this panel. What actually helps this room quite a bit is there's very limited portal surfaces, so it makes it a brain puzzle. You're not running around trying portals on everything, trying to see what fits. You actually look at the limited spaces you have and think, well, what could it possibly be? I'm going to see what angle I come through this plate at, now that I can angle it and faith plate at the same time. And you'll see you just barely launch onto this ledge here, and you can activate blue gel. Early parts of the puzzle, once you solve, they give you access to later things. And so it becomes a logical progression through the puzzle of varying difficulty as you proceed. You'll just end up experimenting with a few things. One thing that's fairly apparent to do with blue gel, whenever you get it, is anywhere that you want to fling later, you probably want to go ahead and blue gel it. We need to get a cube over here to open the exit so we have clear goals, and once again we have faith plates that send us back. So I'm going to take this cube off that button because otherwise I'm going to hit my head and give myself a migraine on this thing here. This room was a little bit difficult for me to get into the first time, but now I remember, and as you see with practice, you can sail into here pretty easily. And now we have 2 cubes, and one is to get to the far side, and one is to turn off our fizzler. Although when you're first playing this, you're going to try putting both cubes on the angled panel, or angled panel and traveling with this cube while portaling through the angled panel different places. And I've given away part of the solution, but if you intend to play this, I suggest that you stop watching now, go play it, because the next portion is going to be a spoiler. This is the part that actually took me the longest. Instead of taking the cube with you, because it'll never work, the puzzle, remember, is called non-linear, which means you're going to reuse an element to do something with it. We've already seen 2 uses for this faith plate. There's actually a third, which is one of the things that makes this puzzle so hard if you don't spot it. So drop your cube on this faith plate, and now you're going to get the only execution part of this puzzle, and it's not too difficult because you see if you miss, the cube just keeps bouncing. You don't destroy it and have to get another one or knock it out of the air or anything. It just keeps bouncing, and so you can make multiple attempts. Of course, it's easier if you quick saves. And success! Victory! We have our cube on the far side. We snatched it out of midair, which felt very satisfying. And of course, one of the fun things about these trajectory flings and bounces is how you feel so precise, flinging to the air, landing on the blue gel, and then firing across to the latter half of your puzzle. The puzzle designer has set up for you. You feel successful doing it, and that's the fun thing about these fling puzzles. Our first place winner, a newcomer to the Monday Madness Challenge. Here is a puzzle which was true to flings, a tower puzzle, so to speak, that wasn't a traditional tower puzzle in the sense of climbing skyward and skyward in these ginormous puzzles that people create for no reason other than to intimidate and frustrate players. It requires a little bit of execution, a lot of thought. I give you Tower by Jesse. Look at this, only 2 elements on the placard. Good lighting throughout. It is a bit of an intimidating giant chamber, but it is very transparent where to go. It's just not transparent how to get there. And that's the part you want in a puzzle to be hard. So the first fling is fairly obvious. The lowest alcove is directly opposite an angled panel, and we have a convenient middle pit for flinging, so let's just go across. So the second alcove was actually the hardest for me to do, and it took me a long time to figure out, and I was so proud of myself when I did it. That's actually part of the reason this puzzle won first place, because it was not purely an execution puzzle, and it was not purely a thinking puzzle. It was a little bit of both, but it was an execution puzzle that becomes a thinking puzzle when you figure out the easiest way to execute it requires no midair execution at all. If you want to fling to that second chamber there, this angled panel will not do it for you. That barely got us to this one. And as you will see, it also doesn't get you high enough to do any shooting into that area there. This button flipped this panel here. So A+ for transparency, because that's the only thing that changed. You know you have to use this panel somehow. How to do it is unclear. So if you jump into this panel, you got no height at all. What was that about? You didn't go anywhere. Fall in, and you'll see that automatically deposits me at the bottom of the pit. I can't tell you how many times I tried this, and I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I just knew I had to do something with this panel to get to that second alcove. What I would try to do initially is try to reportal this and reportal the bottom of that, but that's very inefficient. So this becomes much easier if you go into the same portal you came out of. What I mean is I have orange across the way, so I'm going to put orange at the bottom of my pit, and I fly vertically up through this portal here. So you're actually using this portal twice, and I'm using my orange portal in 2 different locations. It's an interesting little twist if you don't spot it. So now that we're up here, we get to a few more elements. We have X over there, which we don't get yet because X button is across the way. We get this button, which is horizontally running, but vertically flipped light bridge on a timer. Now, what use could that possibly be? Pure unlockable here, which is this ceiling panel, which is simply an anti-frustration feature for you to get back up here without having to repeat that first part of the... So let's have a look at this light bridge. It can be used to block a fling. So what you'll see if I portal the obvious fling, which is across the room, it doesn't quite get me across the room. What it does get me is to the light bridge, and you can repeat the fling since you use the light bridge to stop you, and now you have access across the room, and you can unlock one more thing. Now here you have to do a similar thing. You're going to have to do a double fling again, and that's why I like this puzzle. It wasn't just flings with different trajectories. Your fling had a different trajectory each time you did it, and so you had to use your brain, and then you're going to execution fling over to the side. And here we are, and we can unlock the last bit of this puzzle. All of those flings I just did do not get you onto the light bridge. It's time for my confession. I actually have not beat this puzzle yet. The number of steps I've gone through to get to this point give me a lot of trust that there is a solution, and that's exactly the same way I felt about the 2 prior puzzles. I think this puzzle was true to the intent of the challenge, which was approaching things at different trajectories, and you had to use not 1 but 2 different trajectories to solve each piece of this puzzle. Up to 3 times that we've done this so far. I want to thank everyone for submitting. Congratulations to our winners. Congratulations to everybody that came close. Thank you for excellent puzzle designs. I always appreciate the work that you guys put into these things, and I appreciate you for watching the show. It's been 17 hours since I recorded the show. Someone, please, for the love of God, send me the solution to Tower. I can't sleep.